I raised a child for 10 years, then found out he wasn't mine. 10 years ago, I thought I had everything I ever wanted. I had a partner I loved, a beautiful son I adored, and a little home we'd worked hard to build together. I had a job that didn't pay much, but it let me be home in time for bedtime stories and pancake Saturdays. My life wasn't flashy or perfect, but it was mine, and I was proud of it. Now, I'm no contact with both of them. People call me heartless. Some say I abandoned my child. A few friends I considered family don't even speak to me anymore. And the worst part? I still dream about him. I still love him. But I couldn't keep living in a lie. I couldn't keep being the only one holding everything together while pretending nothing was broken. I met Emily when I was 26. She was confident, sharp-tongued, and beautiful in that way that made other people notice when she walked into a room. I was the opposite, quiet, a little awkward, working in IT, and still recovering from a rough breakup. She had a kind of gravity about her, and when she noticed me, I felt like I'd won something I didn't deserve. We started dating, and within a year, she told me she was pregnant. I was stunned, not going to lie. We hadn't been planning for it, and we were still figuring each other out. But the moment I saw the ultrasound photo, I cried. Happy tears. I'd always wanted to be a dad. I didn't have a great one myself, and I promised I'd do better. From the moment Liam was born, I was all in. Late night feedings? Me. Diaper blowouts at 3 a.m.? Me. Story time, school pickups, pediatrician visits. I made sure I was there for everything. Emily was less involved. She loved Liam. I know she did, but she also got frustrated easily. She'd hand him off to me the second he cried or needed something. She called me super dad like it was a compliment, and I wore it like a badge of honor. Looking back, there were signs, little things that didn't sit right. One time, when Liam was maybe 4 or 5, I mentioned how he didn't look much like me, and Emily brushed it off with a laugh and said, "Thank God," right? I thought it was a joke. I told myself it was a joke, because if I let myself think otherwise, well, I don't think I was ready for that truth. I wasn't suspicious. Not really. I didn't want to be. I love that boy. I still do, in a way that I don't think will ever completely go away. That's what makes this whole thing so impossible to explain to people who haven't lived through it. Because I was a dad for 10 years. And then, in one brutal moment, I wasn't. Liam was 10 when it all came crashing down. It was a Sunday afternoon in early spring. He had been riding his bike with some friends a few blocks away when one of them dared him to jump a curb. He hit it wrong and flipped over the handlebars. He ended up with a mild concussion and a fractured wrist. Not life-threatening, but enough to rush him to the emergency room. At the hospital, they needed to run some blood work before sedation for the setting of his bone. A nurse casually asked if Liam's blood type was A positive, like mine. I said yes. At least I thought so. I remembered Emily saying that once when he was little. But then the nurse came back looking puzzled. "Sorry," she said. "The system says his blood type is AB. Are you sure you're his biological father?" My stomach dropped. I laughed nervously and told her yes, of course. I had been there since day one, for God's sake. She said something about rechecking the labs, and left it at that. But something had cracked open. Later, while we waited for the cast, the doctor mentioned they had double-checked everything. And yes, Liam's blood type was AB. I asked what Emily's type was. O positive, like her mom. I asked again, could a child of O and a blood types be AB? The doctor hesitated. "No," she said. "That would only be possible if both parents were AB or carried the B gene." I felt like I'd been punched. I went cold. My fingers went numb. I kept blinking, waiting for the moment to reset like a bad dream. Emily was there, scrolling on her phone, totally calm. I stared at her. She noticed and said, "What?" I asked her what Liam's blood type was. She froze. That was all I needed to see. Later that night, after we got Liam settled and I put him to bed, I asked her again. This time, I didn't back down. "I need you to tell me the truth. Is Liam mine?" Her eyes welled up. She didn't speak for a long time. Then she sat down on the edge of the bed and covered her face. "I don't know for sure," she said quietly. "I don't think so." Those words cracked me open like glass. 10 years. 10 birthdays. 10 Christmases. 10 years of being told I was his world, and he was mine. I felt like I couldn't breathe. She admitted she had cheated early in our relationship, just once, according to her. She was unsure who the father was, but said she just knew I would be a better dad, that I'd be more stable, that I was safer. She said she never told the other guy, that she made a decision to raise Liam with me because she didn't want him growing up with someone unreliable. So you lied, I said. You took that choice from me. Her reply, but look how good you are with him. Doesn't that matter more? I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just walked into our bedroom, closed the door, and cried harder than I have in my entire life. Not just out of betrayal, but loss. Because I knew in that moment, nothing would ever be the same again. Over the next few days, I barely slept. I moved into the guest room. I barely spoke to Emily except to coordinate Liam's care. I scheduled a private paternity test, just to be sure. 2 weeks later, the results came in. 0% probability of paternity. I stared at that number for hours. I thought I might puke. Emily tried to hug me when I told her. I pushed her away. I love him like he was mine, I said. You let me live a lie. She didn't even deny it. She just cried and said she thought she was doing what was best. That I was already his father, DNA or not. That I couldn't just walk away now. But something in me had shattered. I wasn't angry, not at first. Just hollow, like the foundation of my life had been pulled out from under me. I didn't leave right away. I didn't want to hurt Liam. But every time I looked at him, I saw a lie. Not him. He was innocent. But what he represented. A life I had given everything to that had been stolen from me before it even started. Well, I told a few close friends. Most were shocked. Some were sympathetic. But more than a few said, but he's still your son, right? I didn't know how to answer. Because no, he wasn't. Not anymore. And yet, part of me still wanted to protect him from the fallout. The weeks after the test were a blur. I stayed in the house for Liam's sake. I didn't want him to see me packing up and leaving without understanding why. I couldn't tell a 10-year-old boy that the only dad he'd ever known was never really his. I didn't want to traumatize him, but I also couldn't pretend everything was okay. I started sleeping on the couch. I avoided meals with Emily. Every time she tried to talk, I shut her down. She began acting like I was the one destroying the family. You're overreacting, she said one night. You're going to walk out on your son just because of a technicality? A technicality. That's what she called it. When I finally told her I was leaving, she broke down sobbing. Not for me. She never once said she was sorry for what she did to me. She only said, what am I supposed to tell Liam? I told her that was her problem to figure out. I wasn't going to lie to him, but I wasn't going to dump it all on him either. I left her with the option. Either we explain it together when he's older, or she does it herself. She refused, said it would ruin his life. Instead, she ruined mine. While I moved out, I assumed I'd still see Liam regularly. I told her I want to keep being there for him, at least until we could figure out a longer-term plan. But Emily flipped the narrative overnight. She started controlling access, canceling visits at the last second, and then saying I was inconsistent. She told friends I'd abandoned him and just walked out one day. And somehow, people believed her. A friend I'd known since high school messaged me. Hey, I'm really sorry about what's going on, but I gotta say, I don't agree with you just leaving like that. DNA or not, he's still your kid. Another told me I should have manned up and stayed. Even my sister, who knew everything, asked, don't you think it's cruel to just cut off a child who thinks you're his dad? No one seemed to care that I was the one who had been lied to, manipulated, emotionally violated. That I was grieving not just a child, but 10 years of a life that never existed in the way I thought it did. I tried to hold it together for a few months. Therapy, journaling, even a brief trial at co-parenting from a distance. But Emily made everything hard. She'd guilt-trip me, say Liam cried for me at night, then accuse me of abandoning him if I didn't come over. She wanted me there, but not as a father with equal say, just as the emotional support system she could control. One day, I showed up to take Liam to a movie. He wasn't home. She had taken him out of town to visit her sister without telling me. She said, sorry, I forgot. Like it was nothing. I sat in my car for 30 minutes after that, just staring, feeling hollow, like I didn't exist anymore in the life I'd poured myself into. I cried so hard I could barely breathe. That was the moment I decided I couldn't do it anymore. I called her and told her I was done. I couldn't keep being part of a lie. I couldn't be half in, half out. It wasn't fair to me, And ultimately, it wasn't fair to Liam either. She screamed at me, said I was abandoning him, said I was choosing my pride over my family. But she had made that choice the day she decided to lie about who his father was. In the months after I went no contact, things got worse before they got better. People stopped returning texts. I wasn't invited to mutual gatherings. A few mutual friends blocked me outright. I had to hear through the grapevine that Emily was telling people I ran away when things got hard, that I left my son like trash on the side of the road. My own mother was heartbroken. She loved Liam like a grandchild. But even she said, I just don't understand why you can't be his dad anyway. No one seemed to understand what I had lost. It wasn't just about the betrayal. It was about the fact that I had built my entire identity, my self-worth, my values around being a father. And in a moment, I found out that role had been built on a foundation of lies. That I had sacrificed my time, my youth, my mental health, and my heart for a child I was manipulated into raising. I loved him. I probably always will. But I couldn't be his dad anymore. Not after what she did. Not under her control. Not while I was expected to erase myself to keep up the illusion. After going no contact, I hit the lowest point of my life. I wasn't eating. I wasn't sleeping. I went to work because I had to, but I barely functioned. Some nights I would come home, stare at the empty apartment, and break down on the floor. I didn't recognize myself anymore. It wasn't just the loss of a child or the betrayal of a partner. It was the loss of a purpose. I had been a father. That had defined me. And now, I was nothing. For a while, I considered going back. Not because I wanted to, because I was scared. Scared of starting over. Scared of being alone. Scared of what people thought of me. But then, one night, my therapist asked me a question that hit like a punch to the chest. She said, if a friend came to you and described your exact situation, what would you tell him to do? I didn't even hesitate. Leave. For good. He deserves better. She nodded. Then why don't you? That's when I realized I was still carrying guilt for something I didn't do. I was grieving a family that never actually existed. The truth was, I had done everything right. I had loved fully, worked hard, sacrificed, stayed loyal, showed up, and still got discarded like a spare part. So I stopped apologizing. I started focusing on myself for the first time in over a decade. I switched therapists to someone who specialized in betrayal trauma. I joined a men's support group, not just about cheating, but for fathers dealing with parental alienation and emotional abuse. It shocked me how common my story was. There were other men who had raised kids they later found out weren't theirs. Other men whose partners had manipulated them into staying quiet for the sake of the child. Some who were still in court trying to untangle the mess. Some who, like me, had walked away but were called monsters for it. Talking to them helped me feel sane again. Heard. Validated. For the first time in months, I didn't feel crazy for being angry or ashamed for grieving a child who never should have been mine. I began setting goals. Little ones, at first, go to the gym 3 times a week. Make dinner from scratch once a week. Take a weekend hike. Reconnect with my sister, who had finally come around and apologized for not understanding sooner. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. Eventually, I got a promotion at work. I moved into a better apartment. I met new people, ones who didn't know me as Liam's dad or Emily's husband, but just me. I started building a life that was actually mine. That's when Emily reached out. It had been almost a year. She messaged me out of the blue, saying she wanted to talk. That Liam was asking about me, that he missed me, that he was having a hard time in school. I ignored her at first, but she didn't stop. She sent pictures, voice recordings, a video of Liam saying he wanted to see me. It broke me. Then came the guilt trip. You said you'd always be there for him. You're punishing an innocent child for my mistake. He needs you. But I knew what this was. She didn't want to repair anything. She wanted a crutch, a fallback, someone to step in when things got hard. So I wrote back, carefully, clearly. I loved Liam with everything I had. I gave 10 years of my life being the best father I could be. But you took away my choice. You lied to me. You used me. And now you want me to step back into that role without ever acknowledging what you did. That's not love. That's control. If Liam ever wants to reach out when he's older, and he chooses to find me, I'll be here. but I will not continue a relationship under your terms or your narrative. She didn't respond. A few weeks later, a mutual friend told me Emily had finally admitted what happened. She had told her family that I wasn't Liam's father, that she didn't know who was. Apparently, she had even tried to contact the other man, who wanted nothing to do with her or the child. For the first time, people started apologizing to me. One friend messaged, "I didn't get it before. I do now. I'm so sorry." Another said, "You did everything right, man. She screwed all up. It didn't fix everything. It didn't erase the pain, but it helped. It gave me a piece of my dignity back. I'm not bitter anymore. I still think of Liam. I still miss him sometimes. I don't know if I'll ever see him again. I hope he grows up happy. I hope he's safe. I hope one day, if he learns the truth, he understands that I didn't leave because I stopped loving him. I left because I had to start loving myself. It's been 3 years since I walked out of that house. 3 years since I found out the boy I raised as my own wasn't mine. 3 years since I stopped being dad. 3 years since the world I built with so much care collapsed under the weight of one decision I never got to make. And yet, I'm still here. I didn't think I would be okay. I truly didn't. There were nights I thought the pain would kill me. Nights where I couldn't see a future. I questioned everything. My judgment, my worth, my manhood. I felt like a fool. Like I had wasted a decade of my life on a lie. But I've learned that surviving betrayal isn't about forgetting or pretending it didn't matter. It's about rebuilding around the scars. Stronger, wiser, more awake. For a long time, I saw myself as the victim. And I was deceived, manipulated, used. But victimhood is not where I wanted to live. I want to grow. I didn't want Emily to be the central character in my story anymore. And I didn't want the most defining part of my life to be what was taken from me. So I stopped waiting for apologies that would never come. I stopped arguing with people who would never understand. I stopped checking her social media. I stopped chasing ghosts. And I started building something better. I've since met someone new. We took things slow, very slow. She knows my history. She knows about Liam. She didn't flinch when I told her. Instead, she looked me in the eyes and said, "That makes you stronger, not weaker." We don't have kids yet, but we've talked about it. And this time, when it happens, it will be real. No secrets, no lies, no silent, festering betrayals buried under a fake happy home. I'll go into it with eyes wide open, knowing who I am and what I deserve. I've also learned that you can love someone and still walk away. That sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to let go of the thing you've been clinging to out of fear. That letting go doesn't mean you didn't care. It means you finally do. I think about Liam sometimes. I wonder what he knows, what he's been told, if he thinks I abandoned him, if he hates me, if he remembers the nights I read to him until he fell asleep, or the science fair we built a volcano for, or how I carried him on my shoulders during fireworks when he was 5. I hope he does. I hope that one day, if he ever reaches out, we can talk, not as father and son, but as two people who went through something neither of us asked for. And if he never does, that's okay too. I've made peace with the fact that not every story has a happy ending, but that doesn't mean you can't find happiness after the ending. This experience broke me, but it also stripped away every illusion, every comforting lie, and left behind something solid, unshakable. I now know who I am. I'm a man who shows up, who gives his whole heart, who doesn't lie, cheat, or manipulate, who loved a child fully, even after learning the truth, who walked away, not because he stopped caring, but because he finally started caring about himself. And I can live with that. If you take anything from my story, let be this. Don't ever let someone tell you that being betrayed is your fault. Don't let anyone shame you for protecting your heart after it's been shattered. And most of all, don't be afraid to start over. You owe it to yourself to choose peace over chaos, truth over comfort, and freedom over false loyalty. I did, and I'm finally free. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button.